Seen John in a while. His new movie, Rosewater, which he directed, is in theaters now. John, a long time star-studded show, longtime friend of the show. There's John. Let me look at you.
So good to see you.
Let me gaze at you. John, good to see you.
Good to see you.
John,
how are we doing? Hey,
when I heard you. Some things never change.
Since he was in a white naval outfit dancing with a guy.
Right. That was a long time ago.
Somebody says to me,
let's forget that.
They go, do you remember that time you were up with Howard and Goo Goo Dolls were playing a slow song and you were slow dancing with Fred? I'm like, no, I don't remember that.
Me neither.
I'm always. You don't know how many times I've dressed in a
John,
naval outfit.
When I heard you were directing a movie,
yes,
I was like, wow, I was really surprised. I get it. You've been doing the Daily Show a long time. Your career's going well, and sometimes you look for a challenge. But is it true you filmed part of it in Iran?
No. It's about Iran, but we didn't film it there. We filmed it in Jordan, in Amman.
Were you nervous going to Jordan?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, right? I mean...
It's only like it was 40 miles from the Syrian border where they were having the whole civil... It was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that is crazy.
But Jordan is actually very... Like, Jordan is a much more stable... country and environment. When you're in Amman, you don't really feel it. But the hotel we're at.
But you're famous, and do you bring security?
Not to them.
Not to them, but they know. Hey, there's an American. He's successful. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think about stuff like, hey, I could be kidnapped. I could be killed.
I do now.
Yeah. No, really. I mean,
no. I didn't. I think we felt very comfortable. With the stability of the country, with the crew that we were with. We had a Jordanian crew with us. Like, it's not like other films haven't been there either. That's where they filmed Hurt Locker, Zero Dark 30. So it wasn't like crazy. It's not like unstable. Believe me, I'm no hero. You know that.
Right.
I'm no hero.
Right.
I try to stay away from...
and you were about to say the hotel that you stayed at. What was your point about it?
There was a bombing there, like 10, 15 years. It was the Hyatt Hotel bombing. It was like a whole thing years ago. So there were, when you came in, there were a lot of those cement, I guess, little ramparts so that you couldn't get through. Like, you can't drive directly up to the hotel.
Yeah.
And they would search you when you come in at night, which was... I felt like I liked it. I felt like it was the kind of welcome that I appreciated.
No, you didn't. Do you go? Do you go with your family? Do you bring them, or do you just go solo?
I went. Yeah.
How long did you spend in Jordan shooting?
I was there for 10 weeks, 2.5 months.
And the story goes, you didn't really want to direct this movie. You were hesitant. No. At first, you said, "Look, I've never directed before. I'll produce this movie." It was an important movie. The movie is about a guy who I think he worked for
journalist.
Right, a journalist, though.
He didn't work for us. He worked for BBC. He worked for Newsweek. He went to cover the election in Iran in 2009.
Right.
And which went crazy, and then they started arresting people on the streets. He got swept up in that, and he was held in, their sort of notorious prison.
How many days was he held?
118.
So it's the story of a guy in prison for 118 days.
It's very exciting.
Because it kind of actually is exciting in the sense that...
It's crazy.
When I read about this guy who was just held in Mexico, when I read about a guy... Did you see the New York Times article about this guy who was held by the Taliban for 2 years?
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible, the story. I was really kind of shook by. Yeah, just a journalist.
Just a guy doing his job.
And it makes you realize just how fucked up that part of the world is.
Oh, fucked up all over the world. You're talking about... You saw the story in Mexico, these 43 kids that came up to protest. This is in China and Russia, in Turkey, in Iran. Like, journalism, especially right now, because what happens is, so all these big journalism companies, they've cut back.
Right.
So they don't have the infrastructure anymore. So these guys are out there.
They're on their own.
They're
on their own.
They got you talked about security. These guys, so the footage in the movie, there's this crazy footage in the movie of a guy, it's an attack on like a police base. They call him Besiege in Iran. He's climbing up on the fence to get over. There's all the guys in front of it throwing rocks and all this shit and Molotov cocktails. And he just gets shot. Just killed. It's Maziar's footage. He was there.
Wow.
That's what got him in so much trouble. He filmed that, uploaded it to the BBC. They showed it. And then they came like a couple of days later and they took him away.
So why did you decide to direct this? Because you felt the thing was moving too slow?
Yeah.
You just couldn't get the right people involved?
But you know what happened? And I don't know what it was like when you guys were doing Private Parts. I mean, which is, again, like, I don't know how you did your show during that whole time because it's
crazy.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
So he and I would like meet for breakfast and we go over all these lists. I'd come up with a list of some writers. He'd come up with a list of writers. And then we'd send them the book, and hey, maybe take a look at this. We don't have any money. It's just two guys.
Right.
Is this something you're interested in? Well, I'm actually right now I'm working on a project with much bigger people doing much bigger things.
It's very hard to get. It's very hard to get a good director to do something,
right?
And because everyone's
or writer,
right? So you wrote it and directed it,
right? Yeah. But it took us so this was about 12, 14 months of this. And I was like, if we want to make this thing in our lifetimes, I'm going to have to do this because you can't get it done.
So when you go to the Daily Show people, whoever they are, the management, who run the show or whatever, and you say, look, I got to leave. I got to go make a movie on my own.
I gotta.
This is a burning passion.
I got the movie in me.
Are they looking at you like, John, what are you crazy? We're on such a good roll here. The show's doing great.
Yeah.
Is there guilt on your part that you're letting them down somehow?
No guilt on my part. I knew John Oliver. John's been in here, right?
John's been in here.
He's the best.
The best.
The best.
Yeah.
So, I got this whole team there. We got an infrastructure there. Everybody knows how the show works. John, I knew, would have the ability to go in there and they wouldn't miss a beat. So I didn't feel any guilt on there. But obviously, they're nervous because that's their job.
You know what's really strange? The Daily Show and the organization you built over there has become the farm team for so many in comedy that it's almost like a Lorne Michaels situation. You know how Lorne spots talent and all these great people come out of it?
Still, there's no match in that history. 40 years of the people.
The Daily Show, you got... Colbert.
Yeah. Carell.
You got Carell, who was just on our show, who's unbelievable in that movie.
Did you see Foxcatcher?
It's fucking brilliant.
It's crazy.
I didn't know it was him when I saw it.
That's what I said to him. He was on the show, and I go, I saw this movie, and I got to tell you, you're not in it. I'm positive you're not in it.
It's not you.
I sat through it twice. There's some fucking crazy, scary guy, but it's not you.
It was unbelievable movie. And you got a guy. Who else did you have there? I mean, you've got
Colbert, Carell, Cordry, Helms, Ed Helms.
Right.
Now Jessica Williams and Jordan Klepper. Guys that are.
I've heard rumors that it bothers you that here you put together these great teams.
That it bothers me.
Wait. I will tell you what bothers you. A rumor. And by the way, I'd be bothered by this too. And you're not with me yet. What I'm going to say.
All right.
You put together these great people, guys like John Oliver, and Comedy Central doesn't go ahead and make sort of deals with them so they hold on to these people so they can still be not only part of the Daily Show, but also part of what you're developing there.
And part of Comedy Central. They're letting these people go.
In a way, they're not stepping up and holding up. Like HBO got this guy.
Yeah, but it's different. It's what else are they going to do for them? It's not like, John, I think, was a different situation, obviously. But once he hosts the show, I knew he couldn't go back, and that's what I said to him. I said, once it's like Lord of the Rings. Once you have the ring, man, you can't go back to being a hobbit. It just doesn't work that way. So
why did you never structure it like an Oprah type situation where you said, you know what, these guys are so good, I'll sign them to deals, I'll produce their shows.
I don't feel comfortable with that.
You got enough money, and it's like, hey,
and I feel like that puts them in a position where they're beholden to you for no reason. Like, I never looked at it as, hey, kid, I'm giving you a shot. And since I'm giving you a shot, I
owe me.
That's the VIG. I get 20% for the rest of your life. I look at it like this. I got a role for you.
Right.
You're more talented than this. You're never going to get to be the guy driving the car. And I know. So here's the thing. I get to have the fun of having your ability for all the time, but I know somebody's going to come and get you.
Well, that's very generous of you, honestly. But it really is. I mean, are you saying Oprah, in a sense, isn't generous in the sense that she has to hold on and get her 20%?
But I don't think Oprah does that.
She does. Like, she owns part of Rachel Ray's show. She owns part of Dr. Phil's show. She owns part of all these people she discovers. She says, "Hey," but
that may not be contractual. That may be, they say, "I want your expertise" or all that. Like, I've still worked with some of those guys. I work with Steven, if they want that, if it's something that makes sense.
Right.
But I don't want them to feel beholden to me because I don't feel like I discovered them. We have a process. But
how do you find these people? I mean, how did
Auditions,
you find? When I talked to who the hell was I talking to from your show? When I was talking to Carell, I guess he was telling me he had no background in news. He had no background in this kind of comedy.
It's not news. It's improv.
Yeah, but he was shocked when you hired him. He was like, "Really, me? Why would you hire me?"
And then they're going to cover real events.
Shocked.
That's the
right.
thing.
He said he almost felt like he didn't belong. It was kind of fascinating. So how do you?
So funny.
Who are you? The guy who identifies these people?
Yeah,
are you
have to look at and you can almost tell. It's pretty quick. You can see it, and I'm sure you're the same way. Like you see somebody where you go, okay, that's a person that understands what they're doing. They're not doing, for the most part, you get people doing an imitation of what you might like, but there's a falseness to it.
Right.
But then you see somebody who's bringing, the thing about Carell that was always interesting is you can see with him, he finds moments in scripts that you didn't realize were there.
Right.
Like he views it from a skewed perspective. So he's bringing a moment to it that you didn't see, and you're like, all right, I'll take that guy. Anybody that you find that can elevate what you've written, that's your choice.
Did you doubt, because you were a first-time director on this film, the film, by the way, is called Rosewater that Jon directed. Were you like, oh, man, how can I tell an actor what to do? How can I,
Yeah, especially the first day.
How do you even tell the DP what to do? Because you've never directed before.
This guy, Bobby Bukowski, who did Iceman, he did Rampart. I told them early on, when we brought everybody in early on, I was go, look, and this is going to sound like Donald Rumsfeld, but I didn't know what I didn't know. Like, I don't know what I don't know. So you have to tell me what I don't know, because we're going to be out there, and you're going to think, because I'm the director, like, that I understand that as the sun moves up over this building, we're fucked. Like, I'm not going to understand that. You're going to have to say that.
Was there a learning curve when you first get there? You're like, I'm fucked. I don't know what I'm doing.
It's not that you don't know what you're doing, because it's not that different from, in the same way, like when you were on the film, I'm sure you guys weren't walking around like, wait, what? It's still a script. It's still like a narrative. It's still a visual medium.
Right.
That being said, the language is very different. The vocabulary is very different.
Right.
And I don't know how to accomplish it. If I say I want this to feel claustrophobic, I can't say like, but don't do a fisheye. I don't want everybody to look weird.
Right. You rely on those people to tell you how to look closer.
That's right. So I would tell them what I want, and then we would talk about how to do it.
Did you select each of those people based on something they had done because you knew they could bring that to this story?
Yeah, that's what you got to do.
But it was a very small crew. I took with me Bob Bukowski, Jerry Sullivan, who was our production designer, Attila Yusser, who was a AD, and Mary Bailey was script supervisor. Like 4 people. That was it. Everybody else was Jordanian.
I feel like you're in a good place emotionally and also career-wise, because for years I felt like you were trying to break into late-night TV, like to do the traditional Letterman, Leno, whatever, Johnny Carson show. Everyone wanted to put you in that. They saw you as a funny guy. We'll give him a monologue. We'll this and that.
Well, like at Paramount when I was doing that.
That's right. And then when The Daily Show happened, it was really unbelievable. Like you don't have any fantasies now of like taking over. Did they approach you to take over Letterman's spot?
No,
they didn't even do that.
No, I think they know better.
Yeah, because they know better because The Daily Show is such a perfect fit for you.
It is a perfect fit for me. It is. I was not as well suited for those other roles, which is why people didn't watch them.
Are you burning out on The Daily Show in the sense of
a little bit? Sure.
Yeah, because you've done it for so long. Do you have days where you say, you know what, it's enough. I'm going to retire.
Sure.
There's other people who can do this and take over.
Sure.
How much of that is like 50% of you there, or
It's cyclical.
And what is the fantasy?
It goes in rhythms.
What's your fantasy? That you're going to have a free day and you'll do other things, or maybe do nothing and like sit back and just kind of hang out?
Well, I think it's hard to say because I'm in the middle of this whole business. So I always look at it like when you're at mile 25, you don't make a decision about whether or not you're going to keep exercising because your legs are cramping and diarrhea is running down your legs. So you try not to make those types of decisions. But you always think about. I've been doing this 16, 17 years. It's like you probably had that same feeling
all the time.
All the time. So it's very cyclical. You can never find that perfect balance. So you also have to think in your head, like, am I an asshole for even thinking that?
Right.
Because this place has been a gift.
Right.
I mean, I'm incredibly fortunate. So you don't want to look at that and think, but then you got to look at it like, but I also have 2 young children, like, and they're not going to like me for that much longer. So,
That's right.
You also want to spend that time. How much longer can you get home at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night
What's the schedule on the Daily Show? Are you literally out till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night?
No, it's usually 9 to 9. It's about a 12-hour.
Because it's a lot of material. You burn through material.
And you turn over every day.
Are you jealous of Oliver's situation now that he gets to do it once a week?
Oh, God. I told him when he came in, because we were talking about this early on, after I first got back, I said, look, this is, you've got, because he's a very humble guy, so he really was like, I'll just do this for 3 months. It'll be fine. Then I'll go back.
Right.
I don't know why he's suddenly a street urchin, but...
Can I have some more, please?
Can I have some more, please, sir? And he's going to crush me for doing a terrible British accent.
You were critical of George Bush. You said, here's a guy who retired from the presidency, and now he sits home and paints. And you didn't like that. You said, hey, man, he should be doing something.
He is doing some things. It's more funny to me.
Right.
It's more funny that, like, you got all these other presidents, and they always, I think, have a grandiosity. Like, they're still like, I'm traveling the world, and he's like, I'm going to paint my toes. There's just something really funny about the idea.
Does it say something about him, though, that maybe he really wasn't a guy who should have been president for about a million different reasons, but especially because he's not really wanting to do anything for anyone?
Because now he's really doing what he wants.
Right, he's really doing what he wants.
This is what he should have been doing.
He could have saved us all a lot of heartache. It's sort of like, if he'd just become a painter, I think we'd all been much better off.
You know what strikes me odd, too? I love when you have Bill O'Reilly on the Daily Show.
Yeah. Has O'Reilly been here?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And has he been here?
Yes.
Yeah, he has, yeah. And, I don't remember one show from the other.
Believe me, I'm the same way.
But I do like this, I had Joy Behar on the other day, and I said, why did you walk off The View when you had Bill O'Reilly on? After he was a guest, you play along, and and it's interesting. You have different opinions.
Right.
I mean, you have a completely different opinion of the world than this guy, but yet you're willing to have fun with him.
Well, because you don't feel like he's disingenuous. You don't feel like he's, you
don't hate him, right? I mean,
oh God, no.
No, you respect the fact that he has just a different opinion than you.
Yeah. Listen. The people are saying to me, like, why do you have him on? And you're like, well, right, yeah, we disagree. So why would I ever talk to that guy? I'm like, it's Thanksgiving. When I go home to Thanksgiving, like, there are people in my family that are so right-wing, like, they make O'Reilly look like gay Ralph Nader. Like, it's not, the idea that somehow this guy can't be spoken to, it seems insane to me.
But isn't that exactly what's happening in Congress?
Oh, but that's a whole other thing.
But I mean,
the incentives of Congress, the problem with Congress is they're incentivized not to get along.
Right.
So that they have to, for them, it's not that they couldn't get along, it's that they don't want to, because they don't care so much about the country, they care about their party. So they're trying to...
But that's my point. It's not looking at the country and what might be good for the country.
That's right.
It's looking at my own personal
interests. And looking at what raises money. If you're in Congress, what's going to raise money? We came up with a bipartisan deal on immigration to work together to solve this problem. Can you raise money from your base with that? Or can you raise money with your base going... ISIS is coming over the border carrying pockets of Ebola.
Yeah.
And,
So, John, when you have O'Reilly on, but that's not a personal hatred or anything, but I think you hate Sean Hannity on Fox News, right? Like, you just dislike him.
I don't hate him. I just think he's disingenuous. I think that's a real cynical play.
What do you mean?
That feels like a cynical play.
What do you mean?
You don't believe his politics?
You mean, in other words, is he acting a certain way to...
Seems like it.
Yeah.
Seems like it. It's because nobody can be that consistent ideologically.
What about Rush Limbaugh?
When I think about Rush Limbaugh...
I think probably more cynical. I think that's a cynical play. I think the other thing's a cynical play.
But when I think about Rush Limbaugh, I've always said this. I say, how could you always have a knee-jerk reaction to the Republican? In other words, whatever it is, you have the Republican hardline. Do you ever disagree on abortion? Do you ever disagree on gay rights? Yeah, everything is down the line, party specific.
Well, it's also the difference between sort of being a broadcaster and just being an ideologue, being somebody that's working toward a pure partisan.
Yeah.
And that, the thing about O'Reilly you always find is, he is thinking about it. And to be honest with you, the way that party's moved to the right, I always view O'Reilly as like a Kennedy Democrat. Like, he strikes me as a Robert Kennedy Democrat.
He
like,
can be occasionally reasonable.
Catholic, but you know what I mean? Hardline, old school, Catholic, New York. Like, that's the type of guy you're like, yeah, I could see him voting for Robert Kennedy.
Right, yeah. And that's, have you ever voted for a Republican? You have?
Yeah.
Have you ever voted for, like
an independent or like a Green Party?
Yeah, you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of the total specifics of it, but yeah. In general, though, it's very difficult because it's a very narrow field of what you can get. You don't get, as you know, the political system is very just It's bifurcated, so you can't really get something interesting. Like this guy Rand Paul's sort of interesting. He's trying to figure out how to have some libertarian viewpoints while also still staying true to like a Republican base. Like, it's very hard.
Would you ever want to be a politician? Do you think it's it's horrible? Don't you think it's kind of funny how your career has evolved into a guy who now is shaping?
I was in here in a naval outfit dancing with Fred.
It's weird though, right? You didn't when you took when you took the Daily Show. Your grand plan wasn't to become sort of more like a political commentator.
My grand plan was not to get fired. You know, I've been coming in here how many times? The first thing I ever met Howard, the first thing he says to me is, "You're going to be off the air in 6 weeks." I was like, "Wait a minute."
Well, listen, what do I know? I was just playing a part too, you know.
But we all are to some extent. But it is that idea of people always think there is a very conscious career path that you are, you
figured it all out.
People don't realize, like, you're just fucking trying to stay afloat.
You were, because I remember in your stand-up, you were not this political animal. You weren't sort of sitting there and doing political commentary.
No, not to that extent. But it was all sort of social commentary. It was just not necessarily through politics, always politics.
Were you confident The Daily Show was a fit for you when you first got the job, or did you kind of say to yourself, I don't even think this is going to last. This could just be a disaster?
I felt very comfortable doing it. I had a difficult time convincing everyone else who worked there that was the case.
Aren't you shocked how popular? I mean, seriously, for a cable show, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are, but I know they're big.
Well, we also, we came at a very particular time in history. That 2000 election, that, constitutional crisis, and who won, and then the Supreme Court decided. There was so much going on, and then 9/11, and then the Iraq War. It was a very particular time in history with a very particular type of show that I think connected in a way that worked in a way that none of us thought.
Is there no way that you could cut down the hours you spend at comedy show? If you're there from 9 to 9,
No.
At this point, isn't it such a well-oiled machine that you
you get home at 9. It's not like, you're there 9 to probably 7:30.
Is that because you have to be there for the breaking news? You have to, in other words, if something happens that day, you want to be on it.
Well, you get in it because you have to have the writers' meeting in the morning, and then you got to get scripts.
And you have to conduct that.
I think if you don't do that, then you don't. The staff has to have clarity, and it can't come from anybody but you.
Right.
And why if you're not going to give it, if you can't give it all the attention that it deserves, that means somebody else is better for this. That means somebody else could do it better.
How many Emmys have you won? Do you know?
I built a fort.
You did, out of the Emmys.
I built a fort out of the Emmys.
We learned George Bush had a pillow fort.
And that is that true?
That's right. And you have an Emmy fort.
You know what I love the best, though, is coming over here, like, this is such a different experience than the old days.
Yeah.
Like, when you used to come over here, there'd be, like, 2 porn stars and, like, this weird thing. And now you walk over, it's like, Rachel Ray Beth is talking about the cat.
I know.
Like,
well,
this is
listen,
awesome.
Listen,
everybody grows up, I suppose.
Well, we did.
Man,
although, to make you happy, we interviewed Wendy the retard. She was raped by Bill Cosby. She claimed yesterday. So, there's still plenty of that.
You know that story.
I'm glad that you can still go old school.
That's old school. We go new school, old school. That's the thing.
Yeah. But you've gotten into a group. There was a time I felt like you were always struggling with whether or not you wanted to continue, whether or not you thought, I don't know if you felt bored or if you felt like you just wanted to change the parameters of how it was going down. But I don't feel that way from you anymore. You feel...
I feel good, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
I really didn't like this aspect of the government beating me up every day. I felt the FCC was up my ass.
Right.
Coming over here, I'm able to broadcast. I don't have to worry about every single goddamn thing I say.
It was the stress of it.
It was so stressful because I said, these guys own radio stations. They've put up lots of money.
Right.
If I'm going to be the reason that the government isn't letting them buy radio stations, I mean, it was an incredible story. The government would actually prevent Infinity from buying more radio stations. That's how they pressured them into paying fines.
Right.
And I said, this is all due to me. They got guys riding dump buttons. I said, I can't take the pressure anymore. It's killing me. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep fighting, but it's just fucking with my head, and it just became too big a responsibility.
Did raising kids ever play a factor in that? Because here's what I wonder: because your kids are grown now,
yes,
does that take away a pressure also besides the professional pressure?
Yes.
Does that also free you to be able to? Because I feel like in that scenario, it's easier to do that when you feel like you don't have the same level of responsibilities in other areas.
John, the greatest pressure I felt was when my first kid was born. NBC had fired me, and I said, oh, my God, I don't know that I'm getting another job. This could be it. And then when I got the other job, I said, I have to go out and make a living and fucking tear this town up and really, you know, become number one because how am I going to support these kids? I don't. I mean, at this point, I'm too far along in this career to go, you know, sell cars somewhere. So yes, that pressure to raise a family and to support them, I thought my head was going to burst.
But even once you got to a point where you were successful enough where you knew, because there was a time in there they were still young, and it was clear that you had ascended to a certain place where your career path was set. Financially, you were set.
Right.
But did you feel the pressure of attention, of you're up in the morning, you don't see them when they go off to school. When you come home, you're fucking tired. Like,
well, I used
what's that?
I would come home. I would run home. I would do a lot of my after I did the show. I'd run right home so I could be with the kids and do all of that. But I never felt like that. I'd either be writing a book or I'd be doing something. I had to build a career. And I felt like, oh, I hope this is appreciated. This is what I think a man is supposed to be doing. I didn't have many lessons on how to be a man.
Right.
And I think I'm doing
I don't know that there's a school.
Well, it would have been nice to
man school.
Well, man
Welcome
school.
To man school.
Man school is sort of like, well, some guy should come into your life at some point and explain the world to you. I never had that.
Right.
And
well,
so,
no, you did. It just was explained all fucked up.
All fucked up.
Yeah. And
I was told
it.
Yeah, you know who explained to me? Bill Cosby, okay? So, I mean... You want a drink, John? So the thing is that, you know... by the way, he's innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
I want to say
nobody's charged him with anything.
Thank you. Disclaimer. Get back to you. Forget me.
Yeah. No, but I'm interested in that.
Well, the answer is, I felt terribly... torn because my father always said to me, you just go out and make money. If you can do that, that's it. That's your responsibility.
That's a man.
Right.
That's what a man does.
Right.
So, but I used to say, oh my God, I mean, how do you juggle all of this? It's very difficult.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're saying, hey, my kids are getting older. I'm missing out on...
How old are your kids?
Yeah, 10 and 8.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
It's the wheelhouse, yeah.
So what do you do? I mean, if you're gone, when you're making a movie, you're probably the whole time, oh shit,
you're
should I be
Jordan.
home?
Oh, I was gone for 2.5 months.
Yeah.
The only time I got to see him was on my son's birthday's in July, so they came out to Europe. I flew over there and met them.
Does your wife feel like, hey, you're working too hard and that you're missing too many great moments?
I don't know if she, it's always a pressure. You know what I mean? It's always that tension. No. It's not so much from her, it's from me.
I know.
Where like I'll get instant messages during the day. You're like, look at that. That's fucking great.
Yeah, and that kills you.
Yeah.
Is it weird?
Do you go to the kids' events? Do you make the school events?
It's too famous.
I send my people.
I think it's weird. I think it's weird.
I'm working on that. No,
I think it's weird that your kids call you Mr. Stewart.
It's
that's
not
my
weird.
thing.
It's what I demand. Let me tell you something about respect.
Right.
They need to show respect.
Where are these Emmys you won? Where do you keep them?
They're in like a box.
Is that true?
You don't display them?
Where am I going to? What do I have?
You
a trophy?
have an office. You couldn't put them out there.
I got no.
What is that? Do you think? Is it embarrassing in a way to display your Emmys? Is it like gloating too much? Is it saying, hey,
I think it's putting them in the perspective that they probably deserve. Like it's to not. I think obviously we won the first one. It was like great, and it put a whole different pressure on the show to kind of try and live up to that. But at a certain point, it's not as though you believe, like, yes, we are objectively the greatest show this year.
Right.
It was always, listen, it's better to fly out to Los Angeles and be given something than fly out there and get nothing.
Right.
But you also don't ride it as hard as, we've been, again, very fortunate to have, like, the industry reward you with that. But I think the idea somehow, like, then I'd feel like, what am I, Earl Campbell? Like, what am I going to sit in my Heisman room?
Well, I once read that Larry King has like pictures of himself hanging all over the house and all that.
But that's old school, man.
Yeah, that's old school.
That's such
okay.
an old school. Like, show business back then was about the life. We'd go down to the Winter Garden Theater. Caruso would come on. Did you ever sit with Larry King? With Alan King?
Yeah,
Alan King was like that.
Yeah, it seemed like they had this whole, after they worked.
A fraternity.
They went out and hung out, right.
They all hung out. Alan King, you'd go up to his office. I used to love going up to his office. It was this giant window out, and it overlooked the park, and he'd look down and be like, So over there, that's where Dean Martin's passed out in the bathtub.
Yeah.
Jackie Gleason's banging these two broads. And you're just like, it's all showbiz. And that was their life.
But I feel that people would almost expect that Jon Stewart not display his Emmys. That it would be weird. Like, you're sort of anti kind of awards and this and that. But I think you could take pride in it.
I'm not anti-awards. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, but you could take pride in that and say, hey, here they are. In fact, display them here. Put them here. Why have them sit in a box?
I'll bring them in. Out there.
I would display them for you when people see all the Emmys. Like, oh, those are John's.
You know what part of it is, I think, is that because of the relentless nature of the show, you just sort of don't. I think some of it is you don't have that time to sit back, and there's something about that is too savoring.
Yes.
That I think I don't want to put myself in a mindset of being able to enjoy something.
Yes.
I'm a Jew.
Yeah. You know, you're right, though.
I'm not here to enjoy something.
But you're so right.
Yeah.
You're so fucking right. It's like this weird thing, like if you sit and enjoy it, it's almost over. Like maybe 100 years from now, you could go back and
you don't want to think about it that way.
Bad luck or something.
Or it's like when people say, like, you know, what do you think about your impact on the discourse? And you'd be like, I don't think about that because we're doing a show.
You're in the trenches right now.
Yeah, that's death, man. Death to anything that you want to do is the idea of trying to place it. And plus, that's not my job anyway.
Right.
You can never place yourself in your importance of anything.
Of the moment.
Yeah, I always people say to me, "Oh, you did such a great show the other day." I go, "Don't say that, because I can't do that again."
Yeah, what did we do?
I don't know that I can pull that off again.
No, it's absolutely true.
Was it a tough decision to host the Oscars when you did it? It was easy decision.
Easy decision.
Did you pinch yourself? I think that's rarefied air. You know,
rarefied air.
And for a comic, that's like a big deal.
No question.
Would you do it again?
I mean, I did it twice. I would probably do it again. Not sure if they would. It's not. I think that what's needed there is a slightly different animal. The problem with having me do it, and it's a problem with maybe having Dave do it and Rock do it, is we have a pressure to do it as observers, not participants.
Right.
And because of that, you're always treading that line between giving everybody there a warm and gracious show and welcome and make them feel good, and shitting on them.
That's the problem.
And it's really, I think that it makes for maybe for some people more interesting viewing because that tension is there, but for the actual show it might not make for as good a show. And I've found that when I watch it and they have somebody that's like more multidimensional, like more entertaining and maybe a little warmer,
right,
it actually, like, I feel better. I relax. Like, I can imagine that watching it when I'm hosting there's a discomfort there.
There's an edge.
Yes.
I don't even know if it's an edge as much as it is like, no, I don't know, man. This doesn't feel right.
No, I get that because even I watch it and I'm thinking, oh, gee, Chris Rock is hosting. Gee, this is great. He's going to really goof on everyone. Right.
Yes.
But I think I get uncomfortable because I go, these people they're there to be self-congratulatory.
Right.
And you're going in there and you're shitting on them. It's like, oh, my God, this is so the wrong move.
And then for the host, though, you feel that pressure because you're there. You're not a dick.
No, but you don't want to disappoint your fans either.
Right, but you don't want to disappoint them either. So now you're playing both rooms.
Right.
And playing both rooms. I can remember when I did it the first time, because the first time I did it, I thought I had it. And even in the room, I thought I had it nailed. Like, that was one of those nights where right after it was over, we were, like, high-fiving until the next day. We're like, Stewart sucks. Stewart, never show your face again.
Right.
You know, it was one of those things.
Do you get affected by that? When you open the paper, and you're used to getting some really nice accolades from The Daily Show and the things you're doing. So when you get a negative review for the Oscars, did it throw you? It was like, oh, shit, I shouldn't have done this.
Yeah, it throws you, but not... You know, not for that long, you know, because it's not, one of the things about the Oscars is, you know, if my career was only hosting award shows, then I'd be like, oh my God.
Then you're fucked.
What am I going to do now? But so you don't, I think you don't view it in that prism. And there is something, you know, what's interesting, and maybe this is from being a comic. One of the biggest lessons of being a comic is when you first start out, you're just trying to get material. You're just trying to do it well. And when you have those nights where you really bomb, you panic for a second. One of the biggest turning points in being a comic is learning how to steer into the bomb, how to enjoy it, how to, like, in some ways the bomb validates you. Like, oh, yeah, now I'm pushing things. Now I'm trying new things that maybe aren't as tried and true as what I'd done earlier. And maybe now it's not just about getting a good response. It's about becoming a better comic. And there's something about just getting the shit kicked out of you critically the next day.
Right.
That is, it's strangely validating.
Really? That's a very heavy thing because
it's weird, but it's...
I mean, any criticism, I have such a thin skin that I'm like, oh, you don't appreciate me. You don't appreciate what I did. It's just...
but who is going to... In the world now, the most meaningless phrase is mixed reviews.
Right.
Because that's the world we live in is so...
mixed.
Mixed.
Right.
And also, everybody now has access. It's been democratized. You know, critique and opinion and all that because of Twitter, because of social media.
Right. You don't have to deal just with the experts and the news writers.
So and nobody is so within that Twitter universe. Even if everybody's starting to like roll your way, there's a whole sort of contra universe that has to then say, "Oh no, fuck this guy."
Yeah.
Do you read your Twitter feed?
I don't have a Twitter.
You don't?
No.
Because
you know why? I don't want to have. I think part of the problem there is I feel like. It means that there's if I had Twitter, I'd feel like, oh, there's an audience out there of millions. I should probably start the show.
Right.
Like, I should go out there right now and maybe do something.
They would start to influence you.
I think that's right.
Yeah. You say you don't beat yourself up if you get a bad review for doing the Oscars. But you've beaten yourself up. When you interviewed Donald Rumsfeld, you've said yourself, hey, I wasn't hard enough on this guy. I should have asked him tougher questions.
Right.
Do you do
that?
But
I beat myself up. I mean, I don't need help with that. I mean, I don't, but I do that in general.
But, you know, that's tricky, though. When you're sitting there with Donald Rumsfeld, I mean, how far can you push this guy, and then he tunes out, and then you don't get anything from him, right?
Right. It's not beating myself up. It's missing... You miss the opportunity. In some ways, you begin to believe, that affects me sometimes. You begin to believe your own responsibility to get this guy.
Right.
Even though that's complete bullshit. You're not going to be able to do that, and that's not your job. My job is to make an interesting and hopefully challenging interview or get some human moment. But I do think at times I would feel that pressure of, people are counting on me. Well, I've got to get in there. I've got to do this.
And you start to believe your own hype. Like, wow, I got to make this great moment. And everyone's going to be talking about it. It's going to be in the newspaper.
I think the Kramer thing was one of those that negatively impacted me like that. Because that came out of Alchemy, but it became such a big deal.
What are you talking about?
We did an interview with Jim Cramer that was like very confrontational. Everybody talked about it.
That's right.
There was a big mess on Wall Street.
There was a big mess on. It was the big mess on Wall Street, and I think that could have negatively impacted the idea of the expectation of what these interviews are supposed to be. That somehow. Right. And I'm sure you've had that moment, like you've done a couple interviews, and those heights are not sustainable, or those levels of conflict. But it's like anything else. It's like, when you're a kid, when you're 14 years old, if you see a woman, like, you flipping through, like, remember the old Sears catalog, you're like, oh my God, a brassiere. Right. I'm gonna have an erection for 2 weeks.
Right.
And now you're older and you're like, it's gotta be like a woman and a penguin riding a horse. Like, it's fucking twisted and it's gotta be really out there. And so what happens is you keep feeling like you have to hit these higher and higher and weirder things to sustain that level. People get used to us.
When President Obama comes on your show, is that a pressure for you? Do you wake up feeling pressure? You do?
Yeah.
Because, again, you feel like you've got to create something great with the president.
That's right. And you feel like you're serving a lot of different masters. Yeah. And so those can get in your head a little bit. And those can affect your interviewing, I think. In
a way, do you ever wish, like, hey, I don't even need these guests on the show. Like, I could just do my commentary. I can go to the... you know what I mean?
Question. There's a ton of times people say, like, I don't know, name a guy like Jim DeMint, who was like a big senator and ended up in Henry. He's coming on the show. Great booking, and I'm like, fuck. Now I'm gonna have to read this guy's book, and it's gonna be uncomfortable.
Are politicians good? Are they good?
Terrible.
Terrible. Why are they bad?
Because they are on guard. So the way that I look at it is,
well, they're on guard because they're selling themselves.
They're selling, and they're very cautious, and they're disingenuous. And I mean, we oftentimes have people who come on, and in their books will make incredibly strident statements, like very didactic, like, liberals will skull fuck your grandmother, like, and then so they'll come on the show and you'll be like, your book, liberals will skull fuck your grandmother, says that liberals will skull fuck your grandmother, and they're like, no, I don't mean it like that. What I mean is, we're all the same, aren't we? And you're like, oh, all right.
Well, I'll fuck your skull or anyone else.
Right. But I find that Harry Reid was on. who was a Senate, I think he was still the Senate Majority Leader. He had written his autobiography, but he hadn't read it. Like, it was one of those things. Like,
I was misquoted.
Right, but it was one of those things. Like, I'm showing him pictures of like where he grew up as a child. He's like, "Where's that? Where's that?" Yeah, like, oh boy. But so you always find them to be, more than anybody else I interview, guarded. And that's not everybody.
And they're coming on because they're like, "Hey, man, I'm going to show how hip I am.
This is that audience
I'm going to sit down with Jon Stewart."
I think it's. I don't even think it's that.
Yeah.
I think it's the young demographic. They view everything in terms of voting blocks and money.
Yes.
So they look at it as, okay, I've sewn up this, this, and this. They believe us to have some sort of magic with the 18 to 34 demo.
Right.
So they feel like
they'll pal with you.
Right.
You'll be easy on them.
Activate the youth vote.
So you feel used?
No, I don't feel used.
You don't?
No. I don't. I know what they're doing, and I know what I'm doing.
Have you ever had a publicist call you afterwards and say, "Hey, listen, I booked this senator on here, and my God, you just fucked him royally, and how dare you?"
We've had people call. I mean, but we get that from publicists or individuals even. Like, if we'll do a bit on the show.
Right.
I can remember, the late Steve Jobs calling. We did. That was one of those that I think was one of the
What did you do?
What?
What? No, what did you do to Steve Jobs?
Oh, we did a bit called App Holes. It was about, there's a whole thing. Somebody, I think, had gotten a prototype of the iPhone.
Right.
Not the first one, but it was a thing. And it was a whole thing through, I think, a website called Gizmodo, which does these types of reviews. And they had gone, there was some sort of peculiar thing, and like they had sent the paramilitary Apple police to like crack the guy's door down. And so we did a whole bit about, what the fuck is happening with the world. Like, Bill Gates is curing malaria and Apple is kicking people's doors in. You're like, the whole thing is upside down. And you got that call like the next day. It was one of those like, John, Steve Jobs on the line. And you're like, what?
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it was one of those things where you thought like he could actually just communicate with you through your computer. Like,
right, yeah.
You didn't even know, like, really? He has to use the phone? Like, he can't just...
Did you ever actually feel threatened, or were you backed off of something? Were you really felt...
No, because it always happens after the fact. It never happens. Nobody ever knows. So it's you never get that, like, by the way, if you're thinking about doing a bit about me, go fuck yourself.
How long were you... I think of it like bull riding. How long were you in the rodeo with Steve Jobs on the phone? Was it a 1-minute phone call? Was it a 10-minute phone call?
We were on for a while because he and I had met each other. We'd been friendly. So it was more like... It was actually the worst because he was really nice. And it was more like... we were friends. I thought you would call me first. And I was like, really? I could call you? Like, it was more like... I
didn't know I'm able to do that.
I didn't know I was able to call you. That's exciting. So it was definitely more like that than it was like a threatening. But, you get the occasion.
How weird was it for you on the show? And I'll get back to the movie Rosewater, because I do have questions about that as well. But how weird was it for you on The Daily Show when I had read that you were college roommates with Anthony Weiner?
No.
Or something. You knew him in college.
No.
So he's not a friend of yours?
Oh, no.
He was.
When I got out of college, a bunch of my friends from college moved to D.C. He was in D.C.
Oh.
And they used to get a beach house every year in Delaware. So I met him at a beach, but we were never roommates or anything.
Oh, so you were never really close friends?
I'd say we were friends for a while after college.
The reason I ask is when someone gets in a scandal like that, you can't avoid that on your show. You've got to have fun with it.
Yes, that's right.
And you've got to make fun of it, even though you know that the guy might be a nice guy personally and all this stuff, and it's probably baffling.
Well, luckily in that case, I knew he wasn't.
Right.
So.
You knew he wasn't a nice guy.
Oh, we used to argue like... I mean, we were friends, but we would argue like motherfuckers.
Really? I figured you guys politically were sort of on the same page.
Oh, no.
No?
No.
Anthony Weiner?
Yeah. No, we'd argue like crazy over almost anything. I think he likes the spar. He likes the... he's one of those guys that just like, no matter what, I'm going to have coleslaw. Coleslaw's the worst. What?
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'm just putting it on my sandwich.
But he's the only candidate you ever actually donated to. Am I correct?
Right.
Financially.
Yeah.
You will not donate because you kind of don't want to get into that arena, right?
That's right.
Right. I understand that.
Yeah.
So now how nervous are you with a movie opening up? This is almost like a whole new area for you. Now you got to worry about box office.
Yeah.
You got to worry about critics. You got to worry about all this shit. Are you going to be affected by? I mean, you put a lot of work into this thing.
A lot of work into it.
A lot of work
into it. I think at this point, it's not as... I sort of feel like it's released a little bit now. I think I worried about it more last week. Now that it was out, I felt like... And it seems like with the film, at every turn, it worked out. All you want to do is just keep it alive. So much of this was just trying to keep it alive.
Right.
So in some ways, the fact that we got it out feels a
like
little
a
bit
victory.
A little bit like a victory, and the fact that people seem to like it okay, and that it hasn't gotten crazy shit on, like it's people.
Did you read the reviews or did you avoid?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, you read it starts to come pretty fast and furious. There's like 100, and you can't read all of them. So you read a couple that are like horrible, and then there's a couple that you read that are maybe more negative, where you're like, nah, that's actually a pretty good point. I would have liked to have known that 6 months ago, but I could have done something about it. And then you read a couple that are really nice, but you try not to. I don't know, man. I'm doing this a long time.
But doesn't this process beat the shit out of you? Always worrying about what people think, and it is debilitating. And like I said, you've made enough money. Maybe it's just
look
time
at all the hard work.
Yeah.
People when they deliver their criticism.
This is when it all turns into an intervention.
Yeah.
No, but
let me tell you something. Look how you're aging. Yeah. You don't look well.
No, but I understand. I understand that pressure. I mean, it's just like sometimes you say to yourself, well, why am I still doing it? What the fuck do I care?
But isn't that why you're still doing it? And isn't that why you stayed in it? And even when I think about the very beginnings, man, how did this all begin? This began in Greenwich Village at the bitter end at 1 o'clock in the morning with people telling me I sucked.
Right.
Like, if that's how it starts, isn't that how it's going to end?
I find your stand-up really great. But how long did you suck? How long do we need to suck before we can get to the next level?
I think that so I started working at the Comedy Cellar in McDougal. So I was working, there's a restaurant over there in McDougal called Panchitos. So I was a day bartender at a Mexican restaurant, which is the worst fucking job. You don't make any money. You spend the whole day cutting limes and lemons and making margarita mix so that the night guy can come in and clean the fuck up.
Right.
And you walk out, like my big get at the night was afterwards. I'd be like, Carlos, I'm leaving. Can you throw me some nachos in a tin? And I could just take them with me. So that was my big win for the day.
Right.
But I started hanging out at the Cellar, which was about a block away. And Manny Dorman, who passed away but was running it at the time, and Esty, they let me just hang out there. And I'd go up, and they ended up putting me on as the last guy every night. And that's how I got to be good. So Sunday through Thursday, last comic every night.
That was your reward. You got to go up on stage.
Right. And you'd go up, and they'd give you a meal, $15.
How many people were in the audience? 5 sometimes? I mean,
usually.
Yeah.
If you're lucky. But it's you and the waitstaff. But you learn how to be yourself.
Was there a time you said to yourself, I'm not good at this, it's not going well, I'm going to go get a regular job?
Yeah. But I never really thought I was going to go get a regular job. It was more, I always felt like this is what my life's going to be. And whether it's going to be pleasant or not, I don't know, but this is what it's going to be.
And when you said you bombed those nights, I mean, when you say bomb, what does that mean? Like you literally just walk off early because it's like
no. That you're doing your stuff and
there's not one laugh.
Crickets.
There's not one laugh. I did have a night like that. Well, this even goes to tell you this is what's so seductive about it. So I've been doing it now for 10 years. When did Radio City reopen?
I don't even remember.
So Radio City reopens. It's a huge gala event. I'm a big enough comic now that they asked me to be a part of it.
Right.
Fucking Radio City Music Hall.
You're known.
6,000 people.
Right.
This is very exciting. It's a big night. Billy Crystal's being lowered from the ceiling to open the show. Mitzi Gaynor is there. The Rockettes.
Mitzi Gaynor.
This is going to be showbiz. Ann Margaret's in the audience.
Wow.
This is showbiz.
Yeah.
I go up there. I'll be honest with you. I was impressed that 6,000 people could, in unison, not laugh. You would think.
There's got to be someone.
Somebody would laugh.
Just out of the law of probabilities, 2 people in the audience would be thinking about something else and laughing,
right.
or say a funny joke to each other. The idea that they were able to, as a group, stay silent for that amount of time.
And how long do you
impressive to me.
keep that going? Do you cut it short?
You keep it going until you're light. You ride that bull. You're not getting off that bull.
And the audience never turned around for you. They just stayed away.
Still faced me. They wanted me to see that they were not laughing. Here's how bad it was. This was incredible.
Yeah.
I finished the set. I turned to walk up. You still have that feeling of wow, that was
bad.
That was really bad. And that's the most amount of people that I've ever been bad in front of.
Right.
And I turned, and Shirley Jones was there, who was the Partridge Family mother. She's dealt with like Danny Bonaducci for 10 years. I walk off stage, and she's just shaking her head at me.
Ooh.
And then she opens her arms and hugs me.
Oh.
That's how bad it was.
Oh, my God.
It was so bad, Shirley Jones felt she had to cradle me in her arms.
It's like, at that point, it is a miracle that some people would quit. Some people would leave the business, and then others just go on. And
I think
if
that was your first night on stage, I think you might quit.
Right.
I think it's because it's exactly what you said. There's so much pressure and people, judging us, and you're like, yeah, somewhere in us, we need that.
Did you have any mentors? Was there anyone in comedy that was particularly good to you and said, John, no matter what, keep going, you've got something?
Nobody ever said that.
No one.
No, it wasn't so much that. It was the colleagues, the group of comics.
Who were your guys? Who were the guys? Anybody we know?
Dave Attell,
right.
Louis C.K.,
right.
Colin Quinn,
right.
Dennis,
those are good guys.
They're really good guys. And Nick DiPaolo, like guys that we were all at the Cellar at the same time. Ray Romano was down there at that time.
Maybe that's why you can never quit The Daily Show, too, because when you look at those guys and you say, some of them are doing really well, some of them not as well.
Right.
You got to say, geez, I'm so lucky that my career worked out. Yeah.
But all doing really, and that's the thing, like still all doing well.
Right.
The thing that you always forget is like, making a living in this business, still being able to do it, is still doing pretty well.
It's a miracle. Longevity.
Yeah. And I always looked at it that way, like the idea that you would ever grab, the golden ring. But I always felt like if I worked hard and it stayed relatively sane, and we got many friends that have gone off the rails with drugs and drinking and all that. If you tried to not, if you could stay away from that pitfall, you'd be okay.
So when you decide to direct a movie like Rosewater, do you have somebody that you send the script to after you write it that you can at least say, hey,
is this viable? Is this a real thing?
Is this a real script?
No, I had access to. There were a couple of guys, some directors, producer.
Who'd you contact?
Well, first contacted a guy named Scott Rudin, who was a producer,
right? And
he got involved, and so that helped. But I also gave it to guys that came by the show, like Ron Howard came by the show. And
wow.
I'd be the dick that would go back to the room and be like, hey, Ron, what's up?
And you say, hey, Ron,
I've got a script.
Would you mind if I
pick your brain about my script?
That's right.
Was your hope that he would direct it and read it, or was your hope that he would just give you some pointers?
I mean, it was always a small movie. I mean, I knew that there was no chance.
And would they be honest with you? Would Ron Howard be willing to say to Jon Stewart, hey, man, you're wrong here in scene 2, and,
Oh, no, I didn't want it. I mean, listen, their time is valuable. I wanted a sense of the viability of it more than I wanted, you've got to bring conflict in the second act.
Did some people not contact you after you told, like Ron Howard, does he call you up and say, hey, I read this thing,
Yeah, but he's such a friendly guy. Like, I also knew not to push it with people that I didn't really know very well or that I thought weren't. He is truly how this is possible after being in the business since he was like 7 years old.
He's actually a nice guy.
Really nice guy, like one of the most genuine, down to earth, raised his family away from Hollywood, went out to Connecticut, couldn't be a more decent fella. Wow. And so you get the sense of that as opposed to guys that come in and are a little dicky and kind of carry themselves in a different way.
So you happy now? I mean, you're happy with the wife, the kids, everything. Yeah. Everything is going well. You like doing the Daily Show, so some days you hate it, some days you love it, right? Yeah. And you got the movie. Will you direct another movie?
Maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you have the director's bug now?
I like bossing people around.
Yeah?
That was fun.
This was a serious movie. In fact, Carell told me it was really odd that you guys met up with each other, maybe at Cannes Film Festival.
We were in Telluride.
Yeah.
At this film festival, 20,000 feet above sea level. Nobody could breathe.
And he's in a heavy movie about John DuPont, and you're with the heavy movie Rosewater, and you're looking you're both comedy guys, and you're both out promoting your serious movies.
But there's still good, even in Foxcatcher, there's some moments with Carell that are really comedic in the film.
They are.
The thing where he's wrestling the guy and he's pulling the... and his mother's watching is fucking great. And in our film, same as well. The last 20 minutes of it are really there's a lot of sort of absurd comedy that people end up you'll be sitting in the theater, people are fucking laughing.
Would you like to write an absurd comedy, like a Woody Allen type thing?
Yeah, I think I'd like to write something that's a little more straight comedic. In one of the reasons why I didn't want to add kind of those black comedy elements or farce elements to the script is what happened to this guy, Maziar, in this Iranian prison was so absurd and so out there that I didn't want the audience to wonder, was that real? Is that something he brought?
Did he feel his life was in danger when he was locked in an Iranian prison?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they
beat him?
They beat him. They told him, they were going to kill him. It's fucked.
Yeah.
And, they played for evidence the bit that he did on our show where Jason Jones interviewed him and said, I'm an American spy. Tell me why Iran's so terrifying. So they played that to him and go, why is an American spy talking to you? And he's like, why does an American spy have a television show? Like,
they have no idea what they're doing over there.
They were asking him about, Anton Chekhov is a Zionist, and why are you on his Facebook page? And you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you think that even the stuff we read in the paper about Iran and stuff, you think it's kind of made up and no, they're for real. They're clueless when it comes to America and what we're really about.
Well, certain elements, but see, here's the whole thing though. Within the movie, you see there's a whole other part of Iran that we know nothing about. Young, educated, vibrant, artistic, open to the world. Like, this is a small regime.
But isn't it weird to you that it still exists, that religion is really sort of the basis for all this fucking hate in the world?
But don't you think it's just a pretense? If it wasn't religion, it'd be nationalism. If it wasn't nationalism, it'd be... You've been to Jets-Giants games?
Yeah, I know. So what is it? Is it just human nature to be at war with someone?
I think we're a relatively tribal group of individuals, and, it feels to me like progress in the world is trying to overcome those tendencies.
Do you think we should be fighting ISIS, or are they just not the threat that these guys are making them out to be? Should we just get the fuck out of there?
I think the biggest problem we have over there is we started this, and it's very difficult to walk away. Should we fight every crazy nutbag group in the entire world? No. Then again, we did destabilize the entire region.
If we had never gone in there in the first place, we wouldn't be dealing with this.
I think that's
so.
Right.
We need to be in there.
I'm not sure they would be dealing with this.
So do you think we should have troops now back in Iraq?
I hate to think that, man. I go down to these hospitals and you see these guys, like...
I know.
And it's...
So what do you do?
That's a great point. I think at some level, you have to get either the world to decide to draw a line, but I don't think we're the ones that can always be the ones drawing the line.
I mean, these so-called... Yeah, I know. I mean, China doesn't worry about this shit.
No,
Russia
but they do. They have
a
huge problem now in certain regions with a group called the Uyghurs that are, then they're cracking down on them. But that's a whole other can of worms. I think the real guy now is Putin.
Yeah.
He's lost his shit.
He's
great
nuts.
to watch.
Yeah, I mean, he's great to watch, but he's scary.
He's super scary.
Yeah.
But, I think he's got a whole thing I would return us to the days of the Tsar. He's got a whole thing.
He wants to take over the world.
And you get a guy, and you so rarely see a dictator where you know what his nipples look like. Think about this through history.
It is weird. Yeah,
you know what Hitler's nipples look like?
Napoleon opened his jacket, but you never saw his nipples.
You never saw it. He kept his hand over there. You never see it. I know the idea that I know a dictator's nipples like that is very bizarre to me.
To me, the scariest one is this kid in Korea, because he's just this fat little kid who's angry. He reminds me of that Twilight Zone episode.
And he got a hold
of
weapons.
Where the kid puts you to the field.
Yeah, where he could, right.
He could put you to the field.
He could do whatever he wants to you.
Yeah.
That's that kid.
I feel like he could be easily defeated by a good bottle of scotch and some macanudos.
Yeah, but
or like you say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to let you have sex with a Hollywood star. He'd be like, all right. I give up. You can have my country.
I think in a lot of these countries, if we would just give them porn and instant pizza, fast delivery and stuff, they would love us.
So you would think that.
Yeah.
In the Middle East, if you went to the Middle East in the 1960s, if you went to Egypt or Iran in the 1960s, you wouldn't see maybe one woman wearing hijab.
Right.
If you go there now, maybe you see one woman who's not.
Right.
They tried, that whole idea was the Middle East was going to westernize.
Right.
It did not fit their culture at the time.
They rejected it.
They rejected it.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is, Islam is still it's a young religion. It's like, when Christianity was 1,400 years old, which is where they are, they were still going hey, look at those Protestants. How about I kill them? Hey, what are you gonna do? There was still a lot there. I feel like all these religions, all these, Europe with these nation states, they go through this period of hey, what if we just go to war for 100 years and beat the shit out of each other? And then when they're done, they're like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just...
Hey, by the way, you spend a lot of time goofing on Fox News.
Yes.
But I'm obsessed with the women that they hire.
It's crazy.
It is...
And by the way...
Yeah.
They really do know how to produce television. They just do it better.
Roger Ailes I think of Roger Ailes as a modern-day Hugh Hefner. He's got these...
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, he's got this thing down. Yeah. These women, I mean...
But he knows how to produce television. Their shows are smartly cast.
Yeah.
They're smartly performed.
So you do admire it?
I admire it in the way, like, you got to give it to Lex Luthor sometimes. You got to be like, I don't know how you figured that out.
That was brilliant.
I don't know how you took that. So really, you made the suit out of kryptonite. You're a fucking genius. Like,
are there people on Fox News that you like as entertainers? Like, I like this kid Greg Gutfeld. I like how he.
I don't see that as much. You know, O'Reilly, I think, is a very good broadcaster.
Right.
I like, when he goes at Geraldo, when those two guys get together,
it's entertainment.
I'm sorry, that's very good television.
Right? Why can't a liberal network do that? Why can't they?
I think it's too sanctimonious. Ultimately, it is like, but I know that spinach is better.
Right.
Like, they can never. The beauty of Fox News is everything is asked as a question. So it's all like, they know exactly what they don't ever come on. If you did it as a liberal network, they'd come on and go, these people are terrorists. They are destroying your country. The way on Fox News they do it is, are liberals destroying this country? I don't know. I mean, it sometimes feels that way, doesn't it?
Is Obama an alien?
I don't know.
But it could be.
Is Obama skull fucking my grandmother?
Well, listen, Jon Stewart has taken on yet another aspect of show business. He's slowly conquering everything.
Yeah.
Jon Stewart's Rosewater is in theaters now. It's the true story of a guy locked up in Iran. And if that ain't The Shining, I don't know what is.
A journalist.
Oh, my God, a journalist. It's scary.
It's scary.
There
but
used
to
be that thing where the journalists were hands off the journalists.
No, I know.
They have to tell the story.
This. I do believe that technology makes it so much more difficult for these sort of 20th century dictatorships to keep up, and that's what gives me hope. And that's sort of, as the movie goes towards the end, you get it ends on that more sort of
you're right.
hopeful note.
The thing I like about all this social media is, like, you can actually get word to other parts of the world, and it works
once
against
people
us and
start
for us.
connecting, it works against you and for you. But I think ultimately, it will be a liberating thing and not a confining thing.
Were you ever contacted to host Meet the Press, or was that all bullshit?
They did. No, we had to meet. Never offered.
Right.
But we had a conversation.
How tempting was that? I bet you really wanted that.
No? No. Listen, I'm not, I don't have the idea that I'm something I'm.
No.
I'm just not. It's like saying to somebody, I see you do a show. It's very funny. It's very interesting. What if you stopped doing that and did this other thing that you're not as good at?
Do you say no to a lot of things? You turn down a lot of things?
I mean, I'm not. I don't think I'm in play like that.
No.
It's not. I think this was a very specific. And I also think, by the way, they weren't just talking to me. It's not like they were like, we got to get this guy. I think which is how it was portrayed. It was more like, we don't know what the fuck to do.
So we're
going to talk to everybody.
Right.
And I think in the room after 5 minutes, they were like, oh, yeah.
Did anybody ever say to you, let's take The Daily Show and syndicate it, like a la Oprah, make a ton of dough, King World, the whole thing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Have they ever said that to you? Take it off Comedy Central and make it bigger?
No, that's been something that came up, but I don't.
But you're afraid to do that in the sense that the thing works so well where it is, right?
Well, there's no reason to. There's no reason to move away. They give us tremendous support, tremendous freedom to do whatever we want.
Yes.
Only, I can count on one hand they've come in and been like, why did you shit on that sponsor like that?
But it's amazing. You're their star. I mean, that show puts them on the map.
But they have. If you had looked at this 15 years ago, but now you're talking about Amy Schumer. You're talking about still South Park is crazy good for them. Key and Peele. They've developed an enormous sort of slate.
Are you in an
incredible?
When is your contract up? Another year? 2015.
That's right.
Do you know what you're going to do? Will you resign?
I just don't know.
They're going to have to really make you a decent offer, right?
No, you know what? I just don't think it's about that. I'm at a level now with them. It's not like, oh, if only they made it worth my while. Like, they've made it worth my while.
Right.
The real question's going to be.
So it doesn't matter if they make it more worth your while.
That's right.
But what's the real question going to be? Whether or not you really just want to do it.
Whether it's time for me to just not be on television for a while. I mean, I think that's more the question. Is exactly what you were saying earlier. Is there something in me that needs to not be on television for a while?
And is there a fear that if I go away, maybe I can't come back?
No.
No?
Yeah, I think you could take a year off and come back. I do.
But also, what does come back mean?
To come back to that show.
Oh, that I don't know. But I don't know that I'd want,
Just come back in a different way.
I mean, there's also other ideas. There's entrepreneurial ideas. There's other things but there's also stand-up. Like,
You want to do stand-up?
Yeah.
You love it, right?
I love it.
Yeah.
One of the lessons I learned years ago when I got canceled, I can remember, there's two things. I remember, you know, getting on Letterman is everything.
Right.
When you're a young comic, and for somebody who was like a huge fan of his, like, and he's still like the Pope. I was on there the other night, and I was just looking at him like, I love you. You know?
I thought that was a great exchange between the two of you.
And you know, he's like the Pope.
Right.
So, similar to you, by the way. Don't you know? You know your place in this as well. So, the Jewish Pope.
Very Jewish.
So getting on Letterman was going to be everything. And I remember I worked 5 years. You remember Frank Gannon was the old Letterman guy. So he came down to see my set. You know, he's like, you know what? I think you're ready. And it was like this crazy feeling. And I remember doing Letterman and it going well. And coming home that night, and I still lived in this shithole down on, you know, with cockroaches and the whole thing. And you could still see there was a hole in my floor. You could see into the basement of the building. Yeah. And it was me and my cat and the cockroaches. And I remember thinking like, oh, so it's not, you remember the old David Brenner story, like I went on, you know, Carson the next day, I'm a millionaire.
Yeah, they put me on in Vegas.
Right. It wasn't magic.
Right.
So, and then I got my own show and it got canceled. And I remember thinking, if my show gets canceled, that's it for me. But
that was the show on MTV or the other
No,
one?
the MTV show syndicated into Paramount, and then that got canceled.
Right.
And then I woke up the next day there, though, and it was like, oh, but my life's not over. And so you sort of had these two polarities, this idea that, like, that guy could make you, but that thing could break you, but neither was true. And that, for some reason, chilled me out.
Yeah.
And I felt like, all right.
So you wouldn't even mind. You wouldn't even mind doing like what Seinfeld's doing. He, you know what? I've talked to him. He said, "I'll never do another sitcom."
He's got he did it so right. The only difference between he and I is he lives forever. The big decision is when you leave a topical show,
you're done.
You got to be ready to leave because you disappear.
It's Seinfeld. The reruns live on, and they've gotten even better. Yeah,
they've gotten even better.
Right.
He still makes shitloads of money. When you leave a topical show, that's the harder part of the decision. Is you really have to be sanguine about that idea that
that's true.
I'm gone. Like, because it's that the next day, it's sort of like, you know, when Oprah left, everybody's like, what are we going to do? Oh, my God. And then they're like, oh, wait, who's this? Oh, Ellen. Oh, this is interesting. You know, and then, like, it's gone. It's the next day.
Everyone's gotten past Oprah. Right. You're absolutely
right. They've got this idea like, you can't leave. You can't
fear?
Leave. And then the next day, they're like, ooh, but what's this?
Yeah. That's why I asked, is there a fear? Because you won't have that outlet
but it's not,
because there's a big black hole inside that needs to be filled. Let's be honest. Who doesn't know that?
That's right. You're gone.
You just came up with, that's the title of all of our autobiographies. There's a big black hole that needs to be filled.
Stupid autobiography for everyone. Jon Stewart's Rosewater is in theaters now. Go see it. It is his directorial debut. His
and
writing.
What was the distribution? Did you have distribution before you shot? Or
No. You got to show it. You got to.
Yeah.
It's a whole other world. You got to show it and do the thing. And we're still not. It's not like a wide. It's in like 300 and some. You know.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see it. And you know, thanks for coming by.
I've gotten more excited about seeing it, hearing you talk about it.
I want you to go see it.
I haven't seen you in a while. The last time I saw you was at your show, I think.
Yeah.
I came on your show.
Yeah.
And that was nice. It was a nice experience. I remember walking by the writers. I didn't think they liked me. They seemed very.
You really should. You got to get out of your head.
Yeah, really.
They love you.
They did. Yeah.
What do you can't. How long have you been doing this?
As soon as he looks at people, he figures they don't.
No,
I just assume. You know.
You should not assume that. You should.
I'm like a dog that's
embrace.
been hit. Yeah.
But here's the thing. You've got to start embracing your legend.
I'm going to do that very.
It.
Well, you know,
it's
you
time.
said it. As soon as you do that.
It's over.
You're fucked. That's the way it goes. All right, listen, Jon Stewart's movie is called Rosewater. Now go watch the movie.
Thank you.
Jon spent a lot of time. He left his job to go do this movie.
Now you're guilting.
I mean, for God's sake.
Tell him it's good. Don't tell him it's guilty.
And who doesn't want to see a guy locked up in prison for 118?
No, that's the wrong pitch.
I love movies like that.
Iranian prison.
You know what?
I love Homeland. I love what I mean. I was.
Oh, you got to go see it.
That story in the New York Times of the guy who was captured by Al Qaeda. I was fascinated by that. I think it's important.
Well, I definitely played it up more like the isolation. It's not torture porn. It's about sort of that idea of what happens when they remove you from everything.
Especially when you've done really nothing wrong. You know, if you stole a bicycle even, you can understand why he did nothing.
Nothing.
It's crazy. And that's what's going on over there, getting locked up for nothing.
Yeah.
Anyway, John, I'm proud of you. Jon Stewart's Rosewater's in theaters now. The Daily Show, of course, goes on. We'll see how much longer. Who knows?
Oh, it goes on no matter what. If I'm there or not, it goes on.
It's going to go on. Jon Stewart, everyone. We'll be back right after these words.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Howard Stern. for freedom.